All right. So the topic of today's presentation is Allyship, an introduction to inclusion and diversity. This webinar is being presented to you by the A.C.E Committee of Cyber Seniors. The A.C.E Committee is a passionate group of Cyber Senior staff and volunteers, and it stands for accessibility, community, and equity. The goal of this webinar series is to educate, spread awareness, and encourage conversations around issues of diversity, inclusion, and social justice. So for the overview, we will be going over first key terms, and then information about allyship, then how to be a good ally, followed by application. To start, we have this quote from Malala Yousafzai: "I raise up my voice, not so I can shout, but so those without a voice can be heard." And this is a good example of what allyship is. So starting with key terms. Privilege. Privilege is an automatic advantage due to race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, ability, social class, or other features that we are born with and cannot necessarily change. Those with less privilege often have more unavoidable obstacles in their life journey. So for example, as a white woman, I have white privilege, but I do not have male privilege. The next important term is intersectionality. This is how intersecting identities create layers of privilege and/or discrimination. The term was created by Kimberly Crenshaw and was officially added to the Oxford English Dictionary in 2015. Diversity. How each person's differences contribute to their experiences and perspectives. Diversity in society happens when people who are different from one another and have different perspectives are in a space together and everyone's voice is being respected and heard. Inclusion. This is when inequities are intentionally being addressed to build a more diverse society that includes and recognizes everyone. Unconscious biases. Unconscious biases are stereotypical views of groups of people that is not consciously formed. Unconscious biases can be positive or negative, and though we may think that we don't hold them, everyone does, because they are just an automatic part of the back of our brain, and we can develop them through things that we see, through the media, how we're taught, by the interactions of our parents. So it's something that kind of you grow up with, and then you have to deconstruct and unlearn as you confront these different things. So I know this is a lot of information, but this is just kind of introduction to some of these terms, and we will be going into them in a little more detail to help understand them a bit better. So here are some images that can further our understanding of some of these terms. So this is a diagram of inclusion. So exclusion, this one's a little self-explanatory. We have all of the green dots are inside of the circle, whereas the dots of other colors are being kept out of the circle. This is, of course, exclusion. Segregation is when there are two different circles and they are not allowed to touch or interact. Integration is when we have the circles within each other, but there is still a degree of separation between the two different colors. And inclusion is when all of the colors are mixing freely and there is no degree of separation. And then down here we have intersectionality, and you can kind of see in the depiction of a Venn diagram, we have these different categories, these different identifiers, such as sexual orientation, race, disability, nationality, gender identity. And rather than being these distinct ideas that don't touch, these are all things that overlap. And the overlappings of different identities and different features can cause different amounts of privilege, different obstacles in life, and so on and so forth. So for example, someone who is gay and Black may have different life experiences and different challenges than someone who is Black and disabled. So that is the idea of intersectionality. Now, equity versus equality. These are two terms that sometimes are used interchangeably, but actually mean two very different things. So though we tend to think of equality as a really important thing, the thing to strive for, it's actually not always the best method. So equality is when you give everyone the exact same opportunities and attempt to help everyone be successful. The problem with this is that when you give everyone the same opportunities, it doesn't consider each person's individual needs, because we aren't all the same. We have different requirements, different challenges. So we can see here in this diagram, equality is when there's a fence and you give everyone the same size of a block to help them over the fence. But in this situation, since people are different heights, even though they're given the same size block, they aren't all able to see this baseball game. So that is what equality can look like. Equity, on the other hand, is the creation of opportunities for individuals so that they can become equal to others. Equity recognizes that everyone is different and has different needs in order to reach equality. So here's an example of equity where we have everyone is given a different size block so that everyone is able to see over the fence. So another way of kind of understanding it is equality is when everyone is given the same means but does not receive the same ends. And equity is when people are given different means so that they can receive the same ends and have the same opportunities. So privilege was another term we went over. So this is the coin metaphor for privilege. The people at the top of the coin is privileged. Here you have an advantage that others do not. You did not earn it, you have it because of who you happen to be. So that could be something like being born white, or being born in a rich country, or to a famous family. The coin itself is the system of inequality. It's the social structure that produces and maintains inequality. So these social structures include sexism, racism, and ableism that are part of the social systems that we belong to. Oppression is the bottom of the coin. These are people that do not have privilege. They have disadvantages that others do not, and they did not earn it. They have it because of who you happen to be. So this is when people are in underrepresented groups a lot of the time. So now moving on to allyship, and what is an ally? An ally is someone who actively makes more inclusive spaces that benefit everyone. They support people who may be different from themselves to help their voices be heard. Allyship is a never-ending process of building support, trust, and connections with marginalized groups being those that face racism, sexism, ableism, homophobia, and other forms of discrimination. So how can you be a good ally? What does that involve? A good ally is someone who helps lift up other people's voices without taking over their spaces and speaking for them. In allyship, it's very important to listen to other people in order to learn, along with doing your own research. This way you can learn about marginalized groups so that other people don't need to teach you everything. Good allyship includes recognizing your own privilege and acknowledging how things like your gender or the color of your skin give you unearned advantages or disadvantages in life. It includes calling out others when they say or do something harmful against a marginalized community, even if it may seem minor or does not directly affect you. As an ally, you can help educate others to change their views. Creating welcoming spaces. This ensures that a space, whether it be a classroom, a webinar, or just a conversation between two people, feels safe, inclusive, and non-judgmental, so that everyone involved feels comfortable and has a sense of belonging. So how can we create welcoming spaces? You can be supportive, prioritize others and their voices over your own personal discomforts, be willing to learn and to become a better ally, keep an open mind, especially when confronted with ideas that may not be in line with your own worldview, identify resources to learn about important issues, and validate other people's feelings. This comes with the concept of belonging versus fitting in. So we want to change an environment so that it is accessible by all individuals, rather than putting pressure on the individual to change themselves to fit the environment. This is the difference between belonging and fitting in. Another part of creating safe spaces is effective communication. So there are 4 types of communication. There is passive, when someone often disregards their own opinions and feelings when communicating to avoid confrontation. Passive communicators will often let other people express themselves and their thoughts and avoid sharing their own. Aggressive communicators constantly insert their opinions and dominate conversations. Aggressive communicators can control and intimidate others while not listening to their voices. Passive-aggressive communicators, on the other hand, may appear passive but have more aggressive intentions. They tend to be subtle about their aggression, which can be in the form of body language or talking behind someone's back. And the 4th type of communication is assertive. An assertive communicator voices their opinions while still listening to other people's voices. They consider everyone, including themselves, and cooperate with others. And assertive communication is widely considered the most effective form of communication because it allows you to speak your own truths while still listening to and respecting the truths of others. A part of assertive communication is being an empathetic listener. Remember that empathy is trying to understand what someone is going through, whereas sympathy is feeling sorry for them, which can be disempowering to the individual. So try to be empathetic and to focus on what they are saying and validate their feelings. Part of empathetic listening is avoiding passing judgment, giving advice when it might not be asked for, inserting your own experiences into the conversation and making it about you rather than the person who's talking, thinking about your response while they're speaking to you, trying to change their minds or trying to get them to agree with your own viewpoint, and expressing excessive emotions such as crying or otherwise being very emotional and pulling attention away from the person speaking and toward your own response. So now, application of allyship. What does this mean in practice? Allyship, so knowing how to be a good ally and understanding key terms, is an important part of facing real-world issues. In these days, marginalized groups still face many injustices, and we hope to explore issues such as these and many more in future webinars, including the Black Lives Matter movement, Indigenous rights in the Americas, the Israel-Palestinian crisis and occupation, Asian discrimination, the gender pay gap, and many others. And we look forward to hearing from you about what causes you are passionate about and would like to see more and learn more about.